boom, 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 boom. Good job, Corny.
Thanks, but that Olympic theme is exhausting.
Well, you get some rest as we read Through Time, Olympics from ancient Greece to the present day. Or really, not quite present day because the book stopped before our Olympics. But hey, I guess they can't reprint the book constantly. These Olympics have to happen for them to put it in the next book, now don't they? Now we're going to skim through some of this because this is a ginormous book, but we're going to try to give you the best facts in it. Now, the world's greatest, fastest, brightest sports show comes around only once every 4 years. Great cities take turns and compete hard to host this 2-week-long event. The Olympic Games combines the razzmatazz of a carnival with the serious business of world-class competition. Bring on the competition. I'll crush them. Thank you, Maleficent. Well, they are so gripping that even people with no interest in sports turn on the TV, like me. Now, this spectacular event, contested by amateur unpaid athletes, started just over 100 years ago. Now, some of them actually are professionals now, but that varies from sport to sport sometimes. Yet it follows 2,800-year-old traditions. The original Olympics began in ancient Greece, when that country was just a group of warring cities. You know, the good old days. Let's see here. Da-da-da-da. Reviving the games. Well, this was back in the very, very old days. The Olympic Games began as a simple running race in Olympia, Greece, in good old 776 BC to honor the Greek god Zeus. And it grew into a huge attraction in which rival Greek cities competed in track and field events, fighting and cheer. What? Oh my gosh!
Oh, they're naked. They're naked. They're naked. We have nudity on KidTime StoryTime. Ah!
Well, we can't see anything. But yes, they are indeed naked, Green Bear, but this is historic.
Nudity is historic? Yeah. Explain that one.
Well, because back then, everybody actually competed nude.
How embarrassing.
I know. Well, let's fast forward from the Naked Olympics to Paris 1900, where the founder of the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, decided he wanted to bring back the Olympics. I'm bringing an Olympics back. Yeah. And he wanted to bring it to his home city of Paris. But it was a big mistake. Well, apparently the show's organizer hated sports. So he listed Olympic events alongside firefighting contests and pigeon races. The ice skaters are billed as part of a show of knives and forks. Oh, that I could totally get into. No, I could see where that would be an interesting combination. But everything about the game was a mess. There's no opening ceremony. There's no stadium. Athletes are competing on bumpy lawns. And javelins are getting stuck in the trees. Swimming events are in the polluted river. And you see the runners? They're running through the streets that are crowded with actual traffic. They didn't close off the streets. And did you know sneakers have not yet been invented? So runners are wearing slippery leather-soled shoes. Some of the runners are wearing hats to keep out the sun. The watching crowds include hardly any actual race officials. And there are bicyclists next to everybody else. The heat forces 4 runners out of the race. Just a total mess. And, well, let's see. When a Frenchman, Michel Teato, wins this foot race, and the American team accuses him of cheating. It's total chaos because there's nobody really watching the race. But they are successful in Paris in one important way.
This better be good.
Well, not only did they keep their clothes on, they kept the Olympic dream alive. So then we fast forward to Berlin 1936. This was the era where Adolf Hitler was running Germany, and he believed that white European people were better than everybody else, and his country was hosting the Olympic Games. So here he is thinking that his Germans are going to prove him right. Instead, who wins the 100-meter race? A black American by the name of Jesse Owens. He left the German guy in the dust and won the gold medal. Hitler was furious, but it showed that athletes at the Olympics can compete as equals, whatever their skin color. Now, moving on to London, 1948, where the page is sideways, so we're just going to move on. Rome, 1960. They brought the games back, but now it's no longer a desperate battle to the death between slave gladiators. When Rome hosts the Olympics in 1960, the competition is fierce, but now they fight for medals, not for their lives. Much better. And the village replaces a slum. They put up 6 new stadiums around Rome. And that's a theme you hear in all the games. Whenever the cities compete, they tend to wipe out bad areas and put up beautiful new stadiums and, you know, where everybody can go compete. Sometimes people love it and sometimes people don't love it because sometimes people get displaced by some of these huge projects and they are very expensive. By the way, Rome 1960, very important. The very first time the Paralympics are held after the Olympics, with events including archery and wheelchair basketball. 1964 in Tokyo. This is famous for being the first Asian Olympics. Moving on to Mexico City, 1968. Also had a controversy because these runners right here who won the track did the sign of Black Power up on the stands to protest discrimination back in the day. And some people thought that the gesture, which is a huge part of the civil rights movement, was inappropriate in the setting of the Olympics. So that Mexico City 1968 was sort of really well known for that moment right there. Munich 1972 was also known for another controversial moment, and this was a very dark time in Olympic history. The Olympics are supposed to bring all these countries together to work in peace, and in fact in the early days, back in the ancient days, the warring cities would stop warring just so they could compete together. But here there was a nightmare broke out, and these terrorists, Arab terrorists, burst into the Israeli apartments of these athletes and took 9 sports athletes hostage, and they would eventually die in a gunfight. And this became a huge, painful scar on the Olympics, and it's considered that the Olympics were never the same after that. They raised security. Things really changed after that. Moscow, 1980. This had its own controversy. As you can see, there's a little soap opera drama in the Olympics when you watch. There's always something because it's hard to coordinate everyone together. Well, Moscow, 1980. This is the era of, anybody know here? Anybody know? I know. What is it? The Cold War. Cold War. Although I prefer my wars hot. All right, but that is accurate. Cold War. That meant that the U.S. used the Olympics as a weapon to boycott the games in Moscow. That meant boycotting, that they stayed out of the games. 60 other countries joined the American boycott. That meant that the Olympics were without Americans plus 60 of its friends. That really changed the opportunities for other people to win, that's for sure. 1984, Los Angeles. This was the Olympics that made Mary Lou Retton famous. She was a gymnast and she was only 16 years old and scored a perfect 10. Perfect 10s, you can't get those anymore because they changed the pointing the system now. But she was very popular. She's a tiny little person, and you'll still see her on TV doing commercials and commenting during the Olympics. So that was a big deal. And it was also the first year where, let me read this because this is interesting. The Olympics usually lost a lot of money. So organizers persuaded big business to offer sponsorships. You know how all the athletes are sponsored? That began in Los Angeles, 1984. And that was nicknamed the Coca-Cola Olympics because that was the big commercial sponsor. Seoul, 1988. Let's see here. Oh, this was the year where Carl Lewis and Canadian Ben Johnson had a personal battle on the field in the 100-meter sprint. who would win? Who would be the world's fastest man? Well, it revealed in tests that Canadian Ben Johnson had taken a drug banned by sports, a muscle-boosting drug, so he was disqualified. That meant that the American Carl Lewis took the gold. But it was a sour victory because the other guy had won it in the race first. And sports officials have been battling for years to stop drug use. And that goes on today. Wow, the light is changing so much. Let me see if I can... There we go. How's that? Better?
Oh yeah, I can see much better now. Thanks.
Anytime, Green Bear. Barcelona, 1992. Beautiful city. Oh, that was one of the most beautiful Olympics ever. Lillehammer, 1994. Brr. Atlanta, 1996. That was a big deal. Every time that the Americans get the Olympics on their soil, they get super duper excited. Sydney, 2000. Now, at this time, as the 20th century was ending, the Olympic movement was in trouble. Why?
Why?
Well, news reports focused on everything that was going wrong. Athletes taking drugs, officials taking bribes, sponsors making huge profits. But then Sydney's success silenced all those critics. Australia's biggest, brightest city put on games that everyone agreed were well organized, joyful, honest, and fair. And here's a cool story. The route of the women's marathon tried to give as many people as possible a free ticket to the Olympics. And families on the course painted their houses and held marathon barbecues as the 53 women raced through. And let's see here. Even after the closing ceremonies a week later, the Australians were still partying. They had not only won the most medals, but they had made the games a celebration of their nation's athletic, outdoor lifestyle. And look at what it says here. Huge TV screens they set up in parks and squares to give a grandstand view to people without a ticket. So really, a lot of people got to experience the Olympics even if they couldn't afford an expensive ticket. Athens 2004, 1600 years after the sports ended here in Olympia. And Greece's rulers had banned the games as pagan, unchristian, back in the 300s. You know, the good old days of 300s. Well, now the Olympics were coming back with some changes. For example, women were taking part now. And you know what else, Green Bear?
No more naked people. Ugh.
I know, right? Ew. So, this time, this was a big deal to have the games put back. People traveled, 18,000 spectators traveled 4 hours from Athens, which it was hosting other events. So, I mean, they put up stadiums and transportation systems. Woo! It was a big deal when they went back. Beijing 2008, super lavish games. And China organized the games with military precision. As they say, the big star of the Beijing 2008 games was this guy, Usain Bolt. He was a 21-year-old Jamaican who was already a world-setting sprinter, and he's the favorite to win the 100-meter. Well, he didn't let the crowd down. He won, and then he won the 200-meter race, and his name, as you know, his nickname is Usain Lightning Bolt because he's so fast. London 2012 was a huge honor because London was hosting the Olympics for the 3rd time. No other city has hosted it that much in modern era. Well, they put up, remember how I told you about how this is an opportunity for cities to spend a lot of money and put up shiny new buildings?
Yeah, I remember.
Well, they did it in London too. They planted 4,000 trees. They put up 6 new sports arenas in an area that was basically mud in a polluted wasteland, and they created all these venues and pools, and hopefully they're getting some use out of these. And then the next one was going to be in 2016, Rio de Janeiro.
That's my samba.
That's very good, but they haven't written that part of the book just yet, have they? They haven't gotten to the latest Olympics, or the one after that, or the one after that. But you know what? This is a story from ancient times that keeps on adding pages. Well, kid, I hope you enjoyed the Olympics book and understood a little bit more about the history of the Olympics so you can appreciate not only where we are now, but how far we have come. Hit it!
You okay? I need some water. Come on. Is Olympic singing a sport?
No, not yet.
It should be.
See you next time, kid.